Evening, everyone. Welcome to the Facilities Planning Committee meeting for September 17, 2025. I'm Trustee Preeti Freethcourt, and I would like to call the meeting to order. With deep gratitude and respect, we're honored to be learning and unlearning on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation. The meeting is currently being broadcast live, and both audio and video recording will be accessible to public viewing even after the meeting ends. Footage from this meeting may be viewed from Canada or anywhere else in the world. The board has a strong commitment to ethical conduct. This includes the responsibility of all participants to conduct themselves with appropriate decorum and professionalism. As a chair of the committee, it is my responsibility to see that the decorum is maintained. Following presentations, there will be an opportunity to ask any questions for clarification purposes. I ask all the participants to keep all their questions and comments to the content provided in the presentation or the report. Before we begin, I ask that all participants introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Trustee Janet Fraser, she, her.
Trustee Victoria Young, committee member.
Trustee Christopher Richardson, committee member.
Trustee Susie Ma, committee member.
Carl Janze, Vancouver Secondary Teachers Association.
Dale Ambrose from VASA.
Paul Lohman from PASA.
Tim Chester from the Operating Engineers.
Melanie Chang from Vancouver DPAC.
Suzette Magri, QP15.
Laura Reed, VETVA, pronouns she, her.
Dmitro Plachotnik, Senior Manager Maintenance Construction, VSB.
Doug Rock, District Principal, Educational Planning.
Jesse Reza-Jones, Executive Director of Facilities.
Flavia Coughlin, Secretary, Treasurer, and CFO.
Helen McGregor, Superintendent and CEO.
Anna Chow, Recorder.
Maureen McRae-Stanger, Associate Superintendent, she, her.
Allison Ogden, she, her, Associate Superintendent.
Janice Myers, Associate Superintendent, she, her.
Gianna Chow, Communications Manager, she, her.
Thank you, everyone. We also have regrets from Committee Vice Chair Joshua Zhang this evening. So moving to the agenda this evening, there is one item for approval. I will ask Executive Director of Facilities, Jesse Gressley-Jones, to present item 1.1, 2026-2027 Minor Capital Plan.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. So the first item is the 2026-2027 Minor Capital Plan. If we could go to the next slide. So this report does contain a recommendation for the board to approve the submission of the 2026-2027 Minor Capital Plan to the Ministry of Infrastructure. This report will go through and describe the Minor Capital Plan submissions for each of the following programs, including the School Enhancement Program, Carbon Neutral Capital Program, Playground Equipment Program, and the Food Infrastructure Program. So projects in the plan are selected on a few specific criteria as we make the evaluations each year. This includes the urgency of the need, focusing on systems that have failed or are well past their end of life. We look at critical systems that are required for core functionality or for life safety of our facilities. We look at the dollar value of projects that are over $200,000 and include a mix of projects in various cost ranges. We look to align the projects wherever possible with other major capital plan items or ensure that they're not conflicting with future anticipated projects that may be coming down the line. We also look for opportunities to augment the scope of seismic mitigation projects wherever possible. So the School Enhancement Program provides capital funding for projects that will improve the safety, facility condition, operational efficiency, and functionality of existing schools. So projects are permitted in 6 categories and are roofing, exterior wall systems, interior construction, HVAC, electrical, and plumbing upgrades. So there have been 4 projects identified in the school enhancement program, the first of which is for Crosstown Elementary, and this is to improve the dedicated heating and cooling systems for the building. This is a 2-phase project. The first phase was approved in the previous year, and it has a value of $1.47 million. At the time of approval, the ministry did understand that it was a multi-phase project and would require funding for the second phase to be able to advance this in completion. This will enable to address the cooling issues that have persisted in this building and have been identified by the school and parents over the last several years since the facility came online. So this is a great project to be able to advance as a second phase in the work, and the current work is currently being tendered and will be underway. The second priority and third priority are for fire alarm enunciator panels to upgrade the existing buildings along with the wiring and device replacement. And those are at the Killarney and Elsie Roy schools. And finally, the fourth priority in this category is the steam heat piping replacement. This will address leaks and issues with the slab that has been deteriorating over time. And that project is located at Point Grey. So the next program is the Carbon Neutral Capital Program, and this provides capital funding specifically for energy efficiency projects that will lower the school district's carbon emissions. And the benefits of this capital funding do include operational cost savings, reduced facility condition index, renewal of infrastructure, and the potential to supplement funding to major capital programs. And there's a maximum of 5 submissions in this category. So we've identified 5 priorities. They're all similar in nature. They are new heating plants and district hot water upgrades to help for aging boiler plants and modernize the efficiency of these boiler systems. These would all result in substantial energy savings. We have itemized them on the side here. They are not the entire schools. They're in several instances specific buildings within those schools. So we have the first priority of Cavell Elementary main building. Second is Charles Dickens Annex. The third is General Brock Elementary, the frame building. The fourth is Shaughnessy Elementary. And the fifth is General Wolfe Elementary, the frame building as well. The Playground Enhancement Program allows us to supplement schools that don't have sufficient play equipment or need improvements to address aging equipment and improve the accessibility of these facilities. We've identified 3 submissions as permitted this year. As a reminder, in previous years, we had Trudeau approved, and that has just completed and opened, which is an exciting addition. And then we have Britannia, which was approved last year, and that work is underway with the RFP out and hoping to get that constructed and up for next spring. So this year we have identified Southlands Elementary, Sexsmith Elementary, and Sir Wilfrid Grenfell Elementary, and the value for those is predefined at $200,000 each. And the final category is the Food Infrastructure Program, and this supports the rehabilitation and upgrade to our food provisions and delivery infrastructure to focus on, with a focus on minor upgrades. This can include refrigerated vehicles to support delivery. It can be the purchase and installation of new and used kitchen equipment. It can be infrastructure such as electrical, plumbing, and ventilation. It can be improvements to for kitchens to meet the local authority requirements, or infrastructure that supports traditional food gathering and preparation. So we've identified 4 priorities in this category. The first is at Sir Winston Churchill Elementary, and this project would improve the meal prep capacity and serve efficiency in key kitchen equipment requirements to replace and support the safe and efficient code-compliant operations. The second is at Killarney Secondary, and this is to replace the existing walk-in cooler was decommissioned due to safety concerns. So this would replace the aging reach-in units with a commercial-grade walk-in cooler. The third is at Vancouver Technical School, and the existing STEAM tables, essential for maintaining our hot food programs during the lunch service, are aging and starting to fail. This would replace those STEAM tables to ensure that we can continue to have compliance with food safety standards. And the fourth is at Windermere, and this would replace the aging gas burner stove, rational oven, and soup kettle with a smaller stove, and new oven and new soup kettle, and add support for production and improve efficiency and optimize the layout. So those projects total $265,000 for that program. And I will pass it back to the chair.
Thank you, Jesse. Are there any questions? Trustee Young?
Thank you to you and your team for putting this together. My question around the food infrastructure program, is that the maximum amount that we can submit annually? Or how is that? What sort of guidelines are in place, please?
There's no specific amount for the submission. It's just what's in the priority.
I believe it's the number of submissions that we can make in that category. So not a total value, but a number.
Thank you.
Trustee Ma?
Thank you, Chair. On the HVAC CNCP project submissions, you talked about the reduction of carbon footprint and cost savings. That's fantastic. Do you know how much we might save after the installation of, if we get accepted on these 5 projects?
Yes, so thank you for the question. So through the chair, in the report on page 6 of the agenda package, we have identified the fuel savings and the total annual savings per project. So they do range from 5,840 down to 320 as the lowest savings, but everything within that range.
Any savings is good savings, right? Thank you.
Any other questions? Melanie?
Thank you. Thank you for this great report. I just had a question about the playgrounds. For Grenfell, the playground, new accessible playground, wondering if that's an additional playground or if that is a replacement playground for the seismically upgraded school?
Thank you. That would be a replacement of the playground that is there and is substantially aged.
Just wondering if the Grenfell PAC was engaged in that and if an accessibility consultant will also be on board with implementation?
So yes, we'll follow our typical process that we've sort of set out, and it's working quite well, I think, now. So once we have put an RFP out for this, we sit down and we engage with the PAC. They review the options that are put forward. All of the improvements do have to meet accessibility requirements. That's a great part of these improvements. So we'll follow exactly what we've done in the last 2 years to ensure that everyone is engaged.
Trustee Fraser?
Thank you. For the SEP, the ventilation heating at Crosstown is a significant investment in a relatively new building. We have some other new schools coming on board, the new elementary at Cole Harbour, and then next is going to be the new elementary in Olympic Village. Have we been able to take what is seems to be a difficulty that we've encountered at Crosstown and use that information in these other new schools that are likely like a similar structure because they're building up schools in small areas downtown?
Yes, thanks for the question. Yes, there's a recognition that the climate is changing, and our temperatures are more extreme in both the spring and fall times of the school years, and so the cooling for new constructions is included. That would be the case for Olympic Village as we're moving forward.
Trustee Fraser, go ahead.
Sorry, this is sort of slightly on a tangent, but is that just in Vancouver from our experience, or is that like a change that is playing out across the province as well?
Adding cooling to school facilities is now something that is being considered by the province-wide, depending on climate patterns in specific areas where the schools are being built.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I'll look at my facilities planning committee. Oh, sorry.
Sorry
ahead,
for the
Melanie.
late. Sorry for the late question. I just wanted to ensure that everybody had opportunities before I asked again. I just wanted just a couple questions about the Point Grey secondary steam heat piping replacement. It seems like it's a huge job, and it's a really unfortunate to see that it was like that there was like damage to the concrete slabs. Just wondering, what would be the time frame for this work if it's approved, and if there would be any disruptions to learning or the school environment? Thanks.
So the funding would need to be expended in the coming year after the projects are finalized and determined, and we would be looking to do construction as we typically do. If there is potential impacts to the school, we'd look to minimize that and be able to achieve or undertake as much work as possible within the summer breaks or whenever it's feasible.
Okay, no more questions? Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll look at my facilities planning committee trustees or whether they would like to recommend this motion to the board for the October 1st, 2025 board meeting. The recommendation reads, as you can see over here on the screen, that the Board of Education of School Board District number 39, Vancouver, approves the 2026-2027 minor capital plan for submission to the Ministry of Infrastructure. Okay, Trustee Ma, Trustee Richardson.
Yes, I'm in
And
favor.
Trustee Young. Oh, okay, and myself, all in favor. Okay, so this will go to the board for recommendation from the Facilities Planning Committee in support of this motion. Okay. Moving forward, we have one more item for this evening. I'll ask the Executive Director of Facilities, Jesse, to present item 3.1, Downtown Catchment Boundary Change Process.
Excellent, thank you again. So we can advance to the next slide. So this item will cover the proposed engagement plan and next steps in starting a catchment boundary change to enable the new school at Cole Harbour. So a catchment does need to be defined for this new school, and changes to the school catchment boundaries are approved by the Board of Education at the recommendation of the superintendent. So the report before you presents information and initiates the public engagement process. On the right here, you can see the current catchment areas in the 3 colors with the new school at Cole Harbour identified in Cole Harbour at the top center. So this process is being guided by VSB Administrative Procedure 305, which is the school catchment boundaries. There's consideration given to the process or establishing the revised catchments needs to consider the following factors. Population distribution and the corresponding capacity of the associated schools, natural boundaries, walking distances, neighborhood continuity and connectivity, and student safety. So I'll walk through a little bit of the background of how we've analyzed each of these factors and helped us to get to several options that we're going to discuss later tonight. So the first is population. So to establish the new school catchment areas, it is necessary that we delineate youth populations on a block-by-block basis. So the map on the right shows clusters of population within the downtown core. We've used an all programs metric to quantify the approximate size of the VSB student population within each given area. Doing this allows us to take each of those blocks and add them together to form the necessary population to maximize the capacity of each of the schools within the downtown core. The second factor that we've considered or would consider in other catchment boundary changes is natural boundaries. In the downtown, it is located on a peninsula. So English Bay, False Creek, Cole Harbour, and Stanley Park form quite discernible natural boundaries, and although it would be possible to cross False Creek, the proposed catchment does maintain the existing consideration of these natural boundaries. No changes proposed there. A really important factor that we've spent a significant amount of time mapping is looking at the walking distances in downtown. And so walking distances for all blocks has been compared to the adjacent schools. These distances are established based on suitable walking paths, so we have not done it as a straight line. We have gone through and mapped each block and the corresponding sort of logical walking route to understand how families would move from their neighborhood to the closest school. And although distance is an important measure, we also do have to consider the barriers along the way and the routes from the neighborhoods that would impact these distances. Another piece that we've considered is neighborhood continuity, and we'll look for feedback on this later this evening when we're looking at the options. The downtown is comprised of several neighborhoods, and these are identified through City of Vancouver planning documents, through sub-area planning studies, and they're observed in the ways that we relate to our neighborhoods. And that could be how a resident or a family relates to the streets around them or the several blocks that their house is within. And these are important factors because these areas often contribute to a sense of belonging and a sense of community. And so we want to understand how those can be kept together to also contribute to the sense of community within a school. Student safety, we have considered this in two ways. One is around arterial roads and the other is around cycling. So first, the arterial roads as a major consideration. We do have Georgia Street as the main east-west arterial through the downtown core. Burrard also plays an important function, and Burrard is currently the delineating line between Crosstown and Roberts at the moment. And Howe Street, Granville Street, and Seymour Street also form a north-south spine through the downtown. One of the important considerations with Georgia Street is that although it is a barrier to travel, there is not sufficient student population on the north side of Georgia to make up a sufficient catchment for the new school at Cole Harbour. So there will be a need to cross Georgia within this catchment, and this will need to be managed through utilizing the existing signalized intersections and continuing to work with the city on improving connections wherever possible. We have been working with the city already to date, and I'll just mention that they are making improvements to several intersections along the Alberni corner, and those will include pedestrian activated signals that will help make that safer as students move north-south across the downtown peninsula. Another important feature is the cycling connections in downtown, and these AAA facilities allow people to safely walk, cycle, and roll, and these networks are improving over time, and so we've looked at both the existing networks and then the proposed networks that will improve along Butte Street, along the Dunsmuir corridor, and the connections that will actually be right at the doorstep of the new Cole Harbour School, which are both the seawall and the Dunsmuir connector. So finally, speaking about the enrollment in the downtown core. So the graph in front of us shows the total youth population compared to the operating capacity. So Cole Harbour is, the new school at Cole Harbour is not a defined catchment yet. So the students that would attend this catchment are within one of these 3 schools currently. You can see the increase in operating capacity in 2017 with the opening of Crosstown, in 2025 with the anticipated opening of the new school at Cole Harbour, and then in future years, 2032, with a new school opening at Lord Roberts Annex. So we have presented 3 options within this report. And we'll be seeking feedback from families and from interest groups like yourselves through this process. It's important that we seek input from families currently residing in the catchments and families who would be planning to enroll in these schools in the future years. So within each of these graphics, you can see the underlying colors. The light shaded red, blue, and green are the existing catchment areas with the proposed changes to the boundaries in each of the option A, B, and C. What we have done to help understand some of the variables or variations is to identify the percent utilization that we would see at those schools based on the population within the revised catchments. So there are several features that will remain the same in each of them. As noted, Georgia Street is not the delineating line, primarily east-west. We've used Robson, Harrow, and Barclay Street as the division point along the west end. And then in various options, you'll see modifications between Burrard Street and Granville Street and Howe Street that allow us to capture different sections of population and be able to adjust the corresponding utilization at each of the schools. So in option A, we see the average number of kindergarten to grade 7 students living in each catchment is relatively balanced under this plan. More families will live within walking distance of their designated catchment school compared to the current configuration. So in this option B, you'll see that we have moved the delineating line between the new school at Cole Harbour and Crosstown to Granville Street. The population is relatively balanced. Roberts Elementary enrollment is closer to capacity in this option. However, it does result in less balance in Crosstown Elementary. And it does not necessarily improve the walking distances for some families living in the southwest part of the current Crosstown catchment. And finally, in option C, this option is the one option that attempts to help balance the enrollment pressure at Elsie Roy by reducing the number of students within this catchment. However, it does increase walking distances for some families, and it results in potentially less balanced enrollment at Roberts and Crosstown, where students' numbers would exceed the available capacity. And in this instance, you will note that the Howe Street is the dividing line between Elsie Roy and Roberts in this option C. And when we're at the boards later, we can discuss sort of the continuity of these neighborhoods and why that may or may not make sense when considering this catchment adjustment. So the engagement process is outlined in detail in the report, and we have already begun communicating out these steps to families and have sent out an email to all families in the downtown core. So that took place on September 12th. We're at the Facilities Planning Committee today, and we will be then launching an online survey and undertaking 3 engagement sessions at each of the schools to gather feedback. We will also be having an identified public delegation meeting on October 27th, and we'll be returning here to the Facilities Planning Committee to present the public feedback and then be able to advance a recommendation to the board. It is important, and this might look tight. We have a lot of work to do in the next few months, but it is really important that we're able to advance a recommendation because kindergarten enrollment will commence in November, and this will help provide clarity for families who are needing to enroll in November. We do know that we won't have catchment adjusted at the start of the enrollment, but we are working on a plan how we will be able to communicate with families so they understand how that intake process will take place. And back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Jesse, for the presentation. So before we go into a small group discussion, are there any questions related to the presentation? Trustee Ma?
Thank you, Chair. So these options and the criteria that was used to develop these options, first I have two questions. So the first thing is there going to be any impact in terms of redefining these boundaries on King George? Like, are other students going to be coming back into this catchment as a result that should have been in this catchment, but now will return because Cole Harbour will be opening up, and that will increase the enrollment, that will then increase the enrollment at King George?
Thank you. So there is increased capacity in the elementary schools with Cole Harbour coming online. So that will enable the potential of some students who have been waitlisted or are enrolling outside of the downtown core to be able to return. But there is no anticipated proposed change for King George as a catchment itself.
Thank you. Okay, so then my second question is, we know that all over the city there are plans to densify. We know that there are towers going up, development applications going up all over the place. Downtown is not oblivious to that. It's not. So these options, does that take into account the possibility? I know this is all about best guess, but we don't know, right, in the future what's going to happen. And I'm wondering if there's enough of a buffer in these three options to address that.
Yes, thank you. So you're right. As identified in the report, all of these schools will remain at capacity. It's important to note that this is an initial step and that we already know there are other changes coming in this area and the periphery that would impact the catchments and the utilization rates in these schools. So there would be a future catchment that needs to be developed for the Olympic Village School prior to that coming online, and that could alleviate some of the pressure in the crosstown catchment. And then in the future, we would need to come back when we have an anticipated timeline or a firm timeline for the Roberts Annex site. At that point, these catchments would again need to be redrawn to better balance that and facilitate the new school. So this is a window of time in which we need clarity on enrollment, but we do already know that changes would come in several years when those schools come online.
Thank you.
Melanie?
Thank you so much for this great report with all of the options laid out, and really appreciating the information sharing. I just had a few comments about the parent engagement part. We're finding that parents don't necessarily open the online surveys and that there's low engagement rate. And I'm just wondering if, and maybe it's because they're busy and they have second jobs and the last thing they want to do after a long day is open another email. So it's not necessarily what you're doing, it's just because we're getting exhausted and not wanting to push any more buttons on our computers. So anyways, there's that. So if there's any way that we can help with communicating, let us know. And we can, for example, do presentations at parent advisory councils and sharing knowledge parent to parent, or having like refreshments at an info session with childcare would be great. Just sharing that. And the second comment I've had to deal with a lot this week is sibling priority. And I see that you've really clearly set out the adaptations to the sibling priority. And I think, though, that it's still going to be hard for parents to really understand how that works. And so if I know that there will be a lot of individual cases, So my other comment is it would be great to have somebody at the district that a parent can phone one-on-one and say, how does this apply to me? This is my situation. Just so that there's no confusion down the road and everybody will, understand what their situation will look like what the options are, how is it applicable to them. Those are just my comments. Thank you.
Trustee Fraser?
Thank you, and thank you for the report and all the work that's gone into preparing it. So we have 3 options before us, I guess the sense is one of these options will be chosen. Is there the possibility that a 4th option will appear through the feedback that might fit better than one of these 3?
Yes, thank you for the question. There's definitely a scenario where it could be a combination of some of the factors in here. We will be asking specific questions about what families like or dislike about each option, and that might elicit feedback that we hadn't considered and would lead us to a 4th option.
Okay, no further questions. Then we can proceed with the small group discussion. I'm just going to ask the Executive Director of Facilities to provide instructions on the process.
Excellent. So as mentioned, we're going to break into 2 groups and we're going to move to the walls to seek that feedback. So I'm going to ask that the individuals who are on the left side of the room, and maybe we stick with the break at the corner here, are going to begin at the engagement wall. And we're going to seek feedback on the process and what we may need to be asking and ensuring who we're contacting in the process. And the individuals who are on this right side of the wall or of the room, if you could move to the options wall where we'll discuss the pros and cons of each of those. We're going to spend about 15 minutes to provide feedback. We will have sticky notes, and we also have sort of voting stickers that you can help us identify your preferences within these 3 options. And Doug and myself will be at the 2 walls helping facilitate discussions. And then back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Point of privilege, please. Sorry. Would you mind breaking trustees up? Please, we spend a lot of time together and have a lot of similar views and quite often not, but I just appreciate if we weren't in the same group.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
How about we do numbered off 1, 2, 1, 2, if that works? Okay.
Yeah, Carl? Just them, yeah.
Maybe if we've started that way, we just go around the room and we call out. So maybe, Janet, if you would like to start.
1,
2,
1,
1, 2.
1,
2,
1.
And the last.
Is it just for the?
Okay.
Yeah, I just did the dots.
So the small group discussion will take approximately about 30 minutes, and the meeting will adjourn at the conclusion of the discussion or at 7:30, whatever is earlier. Okay, thank you. $8:30, I mean. So 30 minutes or 8:30, whatever is earlier. small group discussion, and we're just going to adjourn the meeting right now. Thank you.